Desire tonight is just to let you know where we are with the process, and so that we can hopefully all be on the same page, and then open things up for questions, and hopefully have more time doing questions than having to listen to me stand up here and talk. To start with, I thought we would use the job description that we've developed sort of as a guide, and to give you an opportunity to see it. Now, this is not a secret document. It's been distributed to some preacher friends that we know around the country to make it available for people that may be interested. We've had some casual conversations with a couple of people that had an interest. But we're still very, very early in this process. You don't replace someone like Brian overnight. And we were very fortunate that he's been agreeable to work with us for as long as he has. But if you would, for just a minute, share our excitement, because we really think this can be a great opportunity for River Park, as well as a good opportunity for Brian to focus on an area that is very worthwhile. I mean, let's think about it for a minute. As many people as he and his family will serve here in the work here that he's engaged in, just imagine what kind of work he can do for the kingdom's sake worldwide with Bible Study Guide, because that material goes out to kids all over the place. So it really is a possibility for a win-win there. But a lot of it's going to depend, I think, on how we approach it, how we embrace it, whether we embrace it, and how we move forward. So to begin with, we thought a good approach for us to start with would be develop a job description that accurately described the person and the position. And we thought the best way to do that was really to describe us. So the job description really kind of is a River Park description. Now, if we can, and just to let you know how, I wish this thing had draft on it, because as I've looked over it the last little bit, there's a couple of edits that need to be made, just errors that I've seen. For instance, scroll down, Josh, if you would. No, I'm sorry. Scroll up. The other down. So that's what it looks like at the top, and then right here we say, please email resume via if interested. I don't know how that happens. It had 5 or 6 set of eyes on it, but that kind of thing still gets under your glove sometimes. So obviously we need to spruce that up a little bit. But we thought it would be appropriate to start this thing by providing a description of who we are, and letting someone who's never heard of River Park know who we are. And we thought this was a fair assessment of us in a short paragraph. You can read it for yourself. A couple of things that I want to point out. We're primarily made up of young families, and we recognize that and wouldn't have it any other way. It's turned out to be a great blessing for us old gray-headed people here to be able to see this many people every Sunday, to be able to come here and experience that kind of warmth and glow from those babies is a good thing for all of us. But we also recognize there's some older people here. But more importantly, and probably one of the most significant statements in this whole document, is the fact that we're really looking for a teacher. We're really looking for someone who would come and teach us, along with share their life with us, to come and not stand up here and preach, not stand up here and pound a pulpit. Therefore, there's some words that are obviously missing from this document. You won't find the word preacher in it. You won't find the word pulpit in it, because we don't want to project that image. We want to project an image of a warm, welcoming group that wants you to come and be part of a family. So we said we're looking, what do we want to call a position? Well, we don't want to call it a pulpit minister, because that brings that ugly P word in. So we thought maybe family minister would be the best one. And then as it's been looked at by more and more people, Brian said, most people talk about family minister. They're really wanting a youth minister who is kind of an associate position. So if there's a better word for that, we're open to change that, but we really wanted to emphasize the family concept to our worship, the family concept in our attitude toward one another. And so that was really part of the reason why we chose that word. Relationships. We've always been a group of people that valued our relationship with one another over dogma and traditions and things that we saw as being less important. And that's kind of interesting because I know that relationship piece has kind of been the hook that's kept a lot of us here, kept a lot of us engaged, made this whole thing work for us. We place those relationships over traditional worship practices. And you'll see that statement, and you'll get down here a little further, and you'll read that we choose to be similar to churches of Christ in our practices as matters of preference, not doctrine. And then we use as an example things like a cappella singing, things like communion, things like that. I'll go ahead and spear the sacred cow. That would be very offensive to some groups. That would be horribly offensive to some groups. But we really mean it. We recognize that there are some things that we choose to do that are based on preferences, and we want a person who would consider coming here and being part of us to understand that, so that they don't get here and with their one good sermon that they've got, which every preacher's got. Every preacher's got one sermon that they use for tryouts, and then they've got a completely other book that they use for all the other stuff. We don't want them coming here and preaching, on the importance of things that we think aren't that important. So we're trying to shine a light here on things that we think are important and things that we aren't as convicted on as others. The rest of that about us, I think, is significant from the standpoint that we try to describe people who are excited, who are energetic, who recognize the miraculous power of God, but don't place people over power. In other words, we're not looking for someone who's so charismatic that they'll come in here dancing across the stage and acting in a way that we'd never do, and Brian would never do, and most people that would be here would never do, but would come here with conviction in their soul and understand that God can work through a lot of miraculous ways in our lives every day. That's what that about paragraph is really trying to do, is describe who we are. Okay? Now we can do this two different ways. I can run through this and say what I want to say, and then have dead time where you guys can look at me, and hopefully some of you will ask questions, or you can interrupt me as we go along, and I'm okay with either one. I really am. I tend to be more of a ask questions as you go along, because if you're like me, by the time a person gets to the end of a 10, 15-minute discussion, you forgot your really good question that you had at the beginning. So I'm going to say this: if you have questions, ask it, and then when I finish, then I'll give you a chance to think. So that's where we are. Anybody have any thoughts about that? So we try to describe the summary of the job. We're about 150 people. It's not unusual for us to have roughly 150 people here. Kind of hard sometimes to get a count because there's so many little people, but I think those little people ought to count as 1.5, but however you want to count them, we're consistently around 100, 120, 130, 150. We're looking for a family minister, lowercase family, lowercase minister. We're not looking for a proper noun. We're looking for a worker who will come here and share their life, share their family with us, be part of ours, and that we can continue to grow with. We do want to work with them. We do want to create a warm, irresistible environment where all honest seekers of God can engage, learn, and grow into mature followers. There's a lot in that statement that I'm not going to dive into. But those of you who know us and know what we stand for know what that means. Because the one thing that we do represent is the ability of a very, very, very flawed person to be introduced to a very, very, very perfect God. And we will stand in opposition, in united opposition to anyone who would try to come in here and tell you that in order to be a real, honest follower of God, you got to do it the way somebody wrote in a book. There's a book that tells us how to be His people, and we all know it, and we all read it. Okay? Job summary. Any thoughts about that? So then, qualifications of duties, not a lot there that should surprise you. We want someone to come and work in conjunction with us and to accomplish these things. Thoughts about that? We want them to be in a position where they're willing to plan and oversee some things, not that they would ever take possession of them, not that they would ever completely take ownership of them, but be able to provide us with that kind of guidance and direction and planning, because we do believe this is a full-time position. We don't envision this being a person that will do what Brian has tried to do for the last several years, and that is work a full-time position on a part-time basis. It's unfair to him. It's been unfair. Brian, you've done a wonderful job, and we appreciate it. But in all honesty, there are hospital visits that get missed because we don't have a person that can do that. And sometimes we're available to go, but when you leave the plant like me at 5:30, people that are sick and in the hospital aren't in the mood for company. So we want them to come and be part of us. Desired qualifications. We think that probably the best person for this position is going to have at least a bachelor's degree in some kind of ministry or education, but it's a preferred requirement. So it's possible that they could have a degree in something else that's not necessarily in one of these areas, or they could have a lot of really good experience. We want them to have some degree of experience, although we're willing to work with a person with the right energy level who would come here and may not have a lot of experience. I mean, Brian's still going to be here. The rest of us are still going to be here, and we're perfectly willing to put our arms around somebody when they've made a mistake and say, okay, you learned a lot from that, let's not do it again. Adequate knowledge and use of technology, and just to kind of let you know how we were thinking, that typo at the top was supposed to say via the website or via email, thinking we'd get them to demonstrate their ability to produce an electronic resume and apply that way, but we kind of messed that up, didn't we? Kind of showed our skills. Okay. Well, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. We want them to be a committed follower of Christ, and we want their faith to be mature. We want them to be forward-thinking. We want them to have passion for growth of the kingdom and a willingness to come and become an active member of what we've got going on here at the park. We want them to be compassionate in terms of following Christ. We want them to be confident, charismatic, enthusiastic. We want them to be able to plan and organize, patient and even-tempered and hardworking and self-directed and self-starting. So that was our thought for the job description. It very much aligns with our vision. And our vision is a thought that considers our direction, and we really like our direction. We like what Brian has accomplished here. We like his teaching style, and for that reason, we avoided certain words that we talked about earlier, some of those ugly P words, like preacher and pulpit. We like the teacher. We like the teacher aspect. From a maturity standpoint, we want this person to come here and teach us and take us where we are now and help us mature, not only collectively as a body of people who are seeking after God, but individually. A person who could come here and through their teaching could help us improve our relationships with one another, can help us improve our marriages, can help us improve our relationships with our children. We look forward to, in that vision, a certain energy level. Not that Brian's not high octane, but we really are looking for that energy that always comes from change. Anytime you change something, there's a certain amount of energy that's injected into the process, and we're looking forward to that because we think that can be a good thing for us. One of the realities that I just want to make sure that you understand is that we're looking for someone to come here and be a minister at a time not only in the group of people that we would associate with, but those larger circles of believers that we all would join hands with at any given time and work with at a time when people are leaving those ministries. The number of ministers in churches, period, is declining. And it's declining at a rate that's pretty alarming. So we're looking for that person, and there's not as many of them as there used to be. And there won't be as many of them next year as there are this year. I'll tell you, one of the first people that we reached out to when we realized we had an opening and we had something to share was Patrick Mead. Some of you know Patrick. Some of you follow Patrick from a distance. We sent it to Patrick because he's kind of become the clearinghouse for preachers who have had their hearts broken and their careers crashed because of churches that are, well, how do I say this? How do I say this politically? Further to the right maybe than we are, that don't want to go a direction that we want to go. And he right off the bat said, I got two people that I've heard from recently that may be interested. And so, but understand, as we're looking for this resource in a declining environment, it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, we're open, we're ready to push this ball down the hill, but we're still at the same time, we want to make sure we push it down the right hill. Make sure that we hit the right audience. So understand that we're not in a hurry. There's no sense of urgency on our part to go out and hire the wrong person. The closest sense of urgency that we've had was getting this idea before you in this kind of an environment so that we could openly talk about it. And the first moment that we heard there might be an interest, we kind of jumped at it. I mean, we got all over it. So that's the closest thing to a sense of urgency we've had. We want to make the right decision in this. And we're going to rely on you to help us. This is not going to be a 5-person decision. This is very much going to be a family decision. So what's our plan? Well, our plan right now is to if we need to tweak this thing, we need to tweak it. We're going to continue to get the word out. We have links to most of the major colleges that produce ministers to start linking this document to their webpage so that individuals that are interested, that are looking for a position, that can share our vision, can go to and get it. And when we get a good candidate or candidates, then our intent was to after we've kind of vetted that list and gotten it to a manageable level, to bring you in the picture. And it'll very much be a family decision. We want to make our salary package competitive, and that's going to be a challenge because we're financially challenged. We've got a great group of people, great hearts. We just don't have real deep pockets yet. And so, not unusual for churches our size, but it's the reality. So that's our plan, that's our vision, that's where we are. Let's open it up now. And now we'll either have some really enriching conversations or we'll have a really, really early dismissal time on a Wednesday night service. Yes?
What happens when Brian tells us that 2 weeks is finished and we haven't hired anyone?
I vote for begging him to stay, but I'm not above graveling either.
I wanted him to hear the answer, not me.
Yeah. Well, here, This is an unusual situation because almost without fail in churches, when a preacher stands up and says, I don't want to do this anymore, it usually means somebody's made him mad, somebody's hurt his feelings, and if not him, his wife. And, this is just such an unusual situation that it's one of us who says, we're not going anywhere. I'm gonna continue to deepen my relationship with God right here. I'm just going to direct my focus from here over here where it needs to be. How can you fault somebody for that? I mean, I wanted to be mad at him. I wanted to fuss at him. But then I've decided I don't have to have a reason to fuss at Brian. I can just call him and fuss at him for no good reason. So we've got talent, but in all honesty, y'all will get mad or get tired of listening to me. You get tired of listening to Madison. You'll get tired of listening to Howard or whoever else does it. But we do have some younger people here that have pretty much been silent up to this point. We think are really credible people, Chase. We think there's some real possibility. And here, let me say this while you're gathering your thoughts. Everybody, everybody loves Preacher X. You can put Brian in that box. You can put the best preacher you've ever heard in that box, okay? And if you've been around long enough, you know that's an untrue statement because there is not a person that everybody loves. I wish more than anything that people would say when I'm not around, man, that Jerry Don, that voice of his is just so good and so great. He's just the best I've ever heard. And the reality is I'm not even the best in this building. It's always better when Brian leads and I'm doing something else. But you kind of get me by default sometimes, And then every once in a while I'll give you a real break and I'll leave and Howard gets to do it. Everybody doesn't love everybody. I mean, I didn't come out right. There's not a preacher that everybody's going to love. And so, I'm looking forward to the process. I'm not dreading this. I'm looking forward to this process. I think the wonderful thing about change is you don't know what God has planned for you until you are forced to change. And this is not something that we ask for, but it's something that we do believe that God can work through to take us places that we never dreamed we could go. We never dreamed we'd be here. So, yes, sir.
Why aren't there a lot of specific stuff?
Like what? What specific stuff would you put in there, John?
I'll be honest with you, every time I look for a job, one of the first things I look for is how much am I going to get paid to do this job? And one of the phone calls that I make that says, what's it like coaching for this guy? Teaching's a little different, but when I was coaching, what's it like? How many hours am I going to put in? Am I going to be there all day Saturday or all day Sunday, or what's the deal? And up here, one of the few specific things I see is a bachelor's degree in 1 year. Those are specific things. Whereas being patient, even tempered, yeah, that's something we want. But you may consider yourself patient and even tempered, and Nikki might disagree with me. But those are some specific stuff that's kind of the thing that always kind of sticks out to me is there's not a lot of specific stuff up there.
What would you make specific about it? Because as you contemplate your answer, let me tell you, it's deliberately vague in a lot of areas because we want that person to call us.
Okay, so what happens? They call, they're interested.
Okay, what's their question?
How much are you going to pay us?
No.
But for real,
No.
I mean,
they call and they ask and they're interested in us, and then where does it go? Do they meet with the elders?
Well,
And it goes to, if y'all are good and they meet ABC, then they come and they preach, or is it the other way around? Or
so somebody calls us and makes an inquiry. We're going to visit with them, okay? Interestingly, the conversation that I had with a person was about 10, 15 minutes long. Young person. I think I think Harding product. Money never came up. And just to give you a little bit of flavor of what the landscape's like right now, this particular person said, I don't think I'm interested because I really don't want to preach. Meaning, I don't really want to stand up in front of the auditorium and do that. I want to do Bible studies. I want to do, small classroom stuff. I want to do hospital stuff. And I think those are great things to do. And I wanted to say, well, can't you put together, something to do on Sunday that we can all share in? But I thought it was interesting what? Did you hear that, Brian? If they call and make an inquiry, we're going to answer all their questions as much as possible. If they want to talk about money, we're going to tell them we're going to pay about $160,000 a year. Yeah. Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say to somebody who would call and say, "What's it going to pay?" If that's their first question, it's probably going to be a short conversation. But what I would say is, we're not a wealthy congregation by any means. We got a lot of young families that are raising kids and don't have a lot of money to put in the collection plate. However, we think we can make our salary competitive, and if they continue to push for a number, we're going to talk 40 to 50,000, and with some latitude there, but not a whole lot, But it'll be negotiable. I mean, obviously, we'd pay Patrick Mead probably more than we might pay Madison. Not that Madison's not a great guy and we love him, but obviously it's going to be negotiable. Is that a good answer? How many hours do I have to work? As many as you have to do the day. But however, to do the job. But however, we don't want to say to somebody, you've got to work. You're going to work Monday through Friday. Every Monday through Friday, these are the hours, 40 hours a week, plus the pulpit on Sunday, because what if he or his wife or their children have something to do on Thursdays, and he wants to say, I'm going to work Monday through Sunday, or Sunday through Monday? No. I'm going to take off Saturday and Friday, but I need Thursday afternoons off. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that's would be negotiated based on the need. But it's a full-time, we are serious, we believe it's a full-time position.
Do you think there are people that will not show interest because there's not a salary there that they look at that?
I'm going to tell you, all we want to do with this is to stimulate interest and stimulate conversation, stimulate dialogue. If I'm interested in coming to a group of people that are a little different, and I hope I don't offend anybody in here when I say as a congregation of believers, we're a little different. There's a reason that each one of you are here. And it's probably not because you're just like that group down the street. For one reason or the other, you found a connection, you found a place here. I would call.
I don't want to argue with John because he's bigger than me. But
Good idea.
see, I got to say that if I'm the one answering the phone and the first thing they ask me is, "How much you gonna
No,
pay?"
I'm not saying that's the first thing they're going to ask, but I think that's something that's they're going to ask that eventually.
Sure.
Well, if they
It's a fair question.
they're going to call it up. Could it be a conversation?
Okay, but you still didn't answer Nikki's question. 'Cause
I'm
I was
sorry.
thinking the same thing. Somebody calls, let's say you've already had a conversation with.
What happens next?
Then, yeah, do you talk with him and then everybody else, all the other elders talk with him? And or you'll say, hey, come on down, preach whatever Sunday, and then y'all meet, or what?
Well, I'm gonna say something to that, and then I'm gonna let these guys over here talk about it. Yeah, there'll be conversations. Yes, we would love a serious candidate that we think fits the kind of person that we're looking for on the phone. We're gonna talk to them on the phone, and then we're gonna try to get them here where they can meet with all of us. I say all of us, and then as we get to that point where we think, hey, this may be a person, then yes, there'll be opportunities for other people to meet and greet and talk and provide input, okay? Now, let me say this. Will they have an opportunity to speak to us as a congregation in a formal setting, in a lesson kind of format? Maybe, but everybody's got one good lesson. And so it would be more likely that one or two of us might drop in on them where they are without any prep, if we want to see what that looks like, or see if there are materials available online, or send somebody to go look. Maybe send, somebody to go where they are. Guys, y'all.
That's what I'd say, if we had someone that's preaching somewhere and they do have videos of them, we could watch that and get others to look at them.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, and I think Nikki's gonna agree with this statement, although she may not. I hope that there's enough confidence in this congregation that we're not trying to be so exclusive, five of us going out, where they consider hiring somebody that didn't get exposed to everybody here.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to feel for that candidate to determine whether they make a next step, and we may do that without ever asking any of you, is this okay if we don't interview this person? And I don't think that's unfair, but I can assure you, it is very quickly going to go from us to you if it's somebody that's got potential.
A serious candidate.
Anybody that comes to someone's mind is going to be filtered, just as you filtered that person you talked to on the phone. We didn't have a big meeting. You tell us that you called him on your own, is what you're saying.
I actually didn't. He called himself. We talked for a few minutes, and he said, "You know what? I don't think I'm a good fit." And I said, "Really? Tell me about that." "Well, I'm just really not. I'm looking for a place where I could maybe speak 4 or 5 times a year." And I said, "Well, we're really looking for somebody that can stand and teach us maybe 48 weeks out of the year, I mean, 50. Yeah.
He didn't ask for a meeting with him for him
Right.
to tell all of us that.
That's right.
He relayed that to you. That was sufficient information for you to make a decision.
Yeah.
But when we find someone that we think is going to be suitable, then we want input. He's going to have to lead all of us, not 2 or 3 of us.
And I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna go on a limb and say that, Brian's part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
We'll be a part of that. I feel comfortable that, there may be Brian, and there may be somebody else that got the opportunity to say, is this a person? I don't, Mike might be in the meeting in a particular environment where, what do you think? I mean, there are so that's not to exclude or to say that, but when it comes down to it, I think we would be wrong not to include Brian in that, if you want to use the word culling process, before we kick somebody out.
Those of you that let me say this. Those of you that know me know that I'm a process person. I am passionate about process. I'm a lot more passionate about process than I am about the what's down in the weeds. I think process is critical. One of the best decisions that I was ever a part of. How do I want to say this? One of the best decisions, one of the worst decisions that I was ever a part of was also one of the best decisions I was ever part of. It involved hiring of an individual. The right individual got hired, but the entirely wrong process was followed to get the person hired. Does that make sense? So what we wound up with was the best person in the position, but because we used a flawed process to get it, there were some really, really, really steep hills that we had to climb to get that person and get that environment settled back down. And that was very revealing to me. Something that I thought I should have already known, and that is process is everything. I was part of a group one time that told an individual to go hire your own replacement. You find the person and you go hire them. And they did. And the person that they hired, that they selected, was in all likelihood the person that we would have hired as an executive board. But we didn't go through the right process. And so the person comes into that position having been shoehorned upon them, having been forced on the staff, and a really, really, really talented, highly skilled staff wanted to claw people's eyes out. Not because they didn't have a say, but because they were just bowled over by this process. One of the best decisions because it was the right person, horrible process. Process is everything, and I think that's what Howard's saying. And I wouldn't consider something this important without having an awful lot of input. And I personally believe that diversity in decision making is critical. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure how to phrase the question maybe, but would the tone of what you communicate to this person be, here is sort of the environment, the status quo that we want to maintain, or here is our goal of where we want to be, and can you help us get to that point, or we want you to come with a vision where you think we can be and lead us to that point?
Well, I'll take a crack at that, and then I'll defer. I think I know we have a vision. That vision is to go where God would have us go. I think the magic is going to be in aligning an individual's personal vision with ours. Did that answer your question? Did it even come close? I don't know what God's got in store for us.
You're gonna have somebody that's gonna come in here and you'll ask a question and they'll look up and think. And they'll be processing what we want, so to speak, or what we think, what we have presented we wanted. And you'll have somebody here that won't, that'll immediately say, I think this group can do, and I don't know which one's better. Whether it's someone who comes in and says, I've always wanted a group and this is where I want to take it. Or someone comes and says, well, you think, okay, you got this and this. Let me ponder on that direction. You may have two people with the completely opposite approaches that are still excellent or quality. Until you're looking at an individual and discussing with one individual those specifics, those, that vision.
Anybody else want to take a crack at that? Ricky? Kent?
I think the person's going to have to obviously have a vision how to serve young adults and their families.
Sure.
That's going to have to be their thrust.
That
The exciting thing to me and potentially this would be someone who would have some liberty or feel some freedom to come in and say, wow, look what amazing things they're doing here now, but also they haven't been there, and so they have fresh eyes and maybe see some direction in places that they could help us get to. And I was just, you want them to feel like they had that ability, and it wasn't, hey, we want to this is what we have and we want to protect it, maintain it, but also we want to cherish what we have and see where else we can.
Hey, Josh, scroll down, please. Stop right there. To me, bullet point, the third bullet point down is absolutely the key to this congregation. How do we get you, the congregation, to step up and say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to be a part of this, you've shown me something, you've given me enough vision that I want to volunteer and lead in that area. And have a 70% buy-in in recruiting and training and creating team leadership and people.
Well, see, to me, I would add the word and lead/help team of volunteers. That way you're not saying that we want you to lead every volunteer.
sure.
But you understand the idea, meaning that it's how does he generate within us? Because you can lead a long ways, and if nobody's jumping in and following and being a part of it, then you haven't accomplished a lot. Because as we all know, participation, involvement grows us spiritually, it grows the body spiritually, it grows the family, and everything.
Well, but that's kind of the funny thing about the word lead. If you look around and there's nobody behind you, if you're not developing someone else to go with you, you're really not leading. You're just a person out for a long walk. Thinks they're leading, but nobody's following. You can't lead if you don't have followers. And I think that's I think that is key.
Well, I know as far as myself having gone through this process way more times than I should have in my life, I know the process.
You just fire too many preachers, Roger.
No, it wasn't me anyway. I've kept the last two, but anyway, the process means a great deal because if you and Howard and Kent doesn't think that you need to go to Branson for a weekend to listen to this guy, then he's off my list. I mean, it means a lot to me
Sure.
that, you know, you guys stand up for, okay, next Sunday, us three guys are going to Branson to listen to so-and-so, and then we're gonna make a decision if we wanna invite him here to let y'all listen to him. That speaks volumes to me.
Yeah,
And everybody needs to
I think that's fair.
understand that these guys are gonna bustle a lot of the nonsense. You know, personally speaking, if a guy stands up there and tells me I have to accept a guy walking in the back with a towel wrapped around his head, I'm out the door. I mean, that's just how strongly I feel. But, to me, there's boundaries there.
Yeah. And just a comment. A lot of this may look really, really familiar to you, particularly if you were part of that children's minister process, because we took that basic document and that basic framework and made some changes. We didn't say here that you got to be married, although we'd really prefer somebody that's married. We didn't say here that you don't need to be over, early mid-40s, although we're really not looking for somebody as old as Howard to do this. We didn't, by the same token on the children's minister, we never said you've got to be female, but I really believe the right person for that job would have probably been a 25 to 28-year-old female. I mean, you get that mental image in your head of the right person, but what we're going to try to do is look for that right person, at the same time try to keep our eyes open for that person that may be 25 and needs what we've got to offer, and we need what they have to offer. Okay? Yes, sir.
When you said that there's not a sense of urgency,
Uh-huh.
I mean, do you guys have a realistic timetable? I mean, do we really want to be still doing this a year from now? I.e., kind of how the children's ministry kind of fell off the rails and that kind of stuff?
Well, I don't think the children's minister fell off the rails. I think we just didn't find that person. There was some interest. It never attracted the person that the committee, actually I didn't talk to anybody, but I know there were some conversations, and there was never anyone contacted that rose to the level of taking it to the next level. Kyle, I don't mean to imply that it's not important. It's very important to us, and I think we would be prepared to take the right action quick if we need to, if we find that person, but we're not going to rush to find the wrong person. And that's,
Well, I mean, that's not what I'm getting at.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if we're still doing this
Well, I think
months or a year from now, it could be.
I think if you listen to, I don't think it's a failure. Let me say that again. If we're still doing this, if we're still looking for that person a year from now, I don't think that's necessarily a failure. Guys, understand, there are a lot of people, there are more people going out of the ministry than coming into the ministry. You understand? Did you hear me? There are more people deciding, I'd rather sell stock than get back in that pulpit. I mean, there are some really unpleasant experiences for people, and this is not going to be an easy process. Please don't think it's going to be easy, and please don't think it's going to be quick.
I like there was an idea to watch, like, Francis Chan, Howard asked what would we do, after Brian stopped. That could be an idea to watch other preachers. Can't we watch a video of instead of?
We can. We could certainly use technology in any way we want to, but we got some folks here that are capable. But sure, yeah, that's doable. But that's not our plan.
We don't want to settle because we can't find someone, we don't want to not gonna work. That's my biggest deal. I mean, if we get this out in 2 weeks, we may find the perfect person,
We may.
you know? So that's, we don't have time.
So, so we're looking, places that we're looking to post this are, at the major colleges, all of them, Lipscomb, Freed-Hardeman, Oklahoma Christian, Lubbock, Abilene. There are other preaching schools that are out there that may have people that are interested. Harding's a possibility. I don't know what the likelihood that Harding's going to produce somebody that's going to be comfortable coming here, but it's certainly a possibility if the right person's there.
Would y'all consider some of the eldership or some of the members or whatever, consider going to some of those colleges to?
Sure.
I mean, to meet with, just to kind of, because I know there's a difference in actually having warm bodies there versus a piece of paper on a board.
Oh, sure, yeah. And I think that's what we talked about a minute ago. I would rather go somewhere and talk to somebody when they don't know we're coming than, no, it's not what you're talking about.
Cold
Trying to
recruit,
do what?
to go and cold recruit?
Something like
Like
that.
some of the colleges and visit with some of the classes or what.
Oh.
Some people at the college.
Can you get us in? You know anybody that can get us in? Yeah.
No, but with Dad being an elder there, me being having hired a preacher in the last 3 years from Harding, but that's one of the things that they did on multiple times was they went and more or less held open interviews, or there were job fairs going on, and there were multiple churches with people there trying to put names to faces and talk right then.
I don't think that's ever a bad idea.
Everybody likes a pilgrimage to Mecca every now and then, so.
You're referring, of course, to Harding as, yeah.
I'm willing to go to Pepperdine,
There you go. That's right, I'm with him.
Book me that ticket. I'll fall on my sword. I'll go to Pepperdine for a weekend, sure, yeah.
Do you think that?
You guys know where Pepperdine is, right? Right. The most gorgeous spot in Southern California, right on the beach. Yeah.
Do you think that somebody's going to look at the link and go, I don't want to be a family minister, I want to be a preacher, and bypass it?
Well, I don't know. If that's not the right buzzword to use, buzz term, Brian provided that input, and I hit the button going right back to him saying, if this isn't the right title, you tell us what is. You see that email?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. No.
Okay, well, it's in your inbox. What's the right title?
I admit it's a tough topic.
There's
The reason why I say that is that I think, I'm like a family minister / preacher, because that's realistically what we want. And like the guy that called you said, hey, I want to be a family minister. And then he reads through the stuff and goes, oh, well, I just want to preach a couple of times a year.
yeah.
And that's,
we got a bunch of kids going.
Yeah, and we're past 7:30. Anybody else have any comment to make, observation to make, or question to ask? If you don't, then Howard's going to lead us in prayer, and we'll leave. Anybody? Okay.